It is a new year, and it is also the last Thursday of the month. So you know what that means. It is time for another great story about a local veteran right here in our hometowns. Today we meet a Cold War veteran, but his story is not a one-man show. Here's tonight's Hometown Veterans honoring our heroes. Okay, so here we are to interview our first veteran of 2022, a Cold War veteran. It's interesting. I told a couple people I was interviewing a Cold War veteran, and the first thing they said was, that wasn't really a war. So we're going to learn more.
Yeah, we were not in, in harm's way, basically. But we were able to keep harm from coming.
Roland Evans Walters, a United States Navy veteran from 1961 to 1966. At 78 years old, his swagger and his memory are sharp as ever.
In 1961, that's me.
Wow.
Here I am standing at attention when we were going through things.
It was an honor to sit in his living room and sift through memories from his time in the service. But we can't tell that side of the story without first mentioning his father. Also in the Navy, his dad was a World War II veteran. With nearly 7,000 ships on D-Day, his father was aboard the USS Bates off of Normandy.
He was there. I mean, he was one of the first ships that went in and started taking enemy fire, what they call a snipe. He was in the bowels of the ship as a plumber.
While his father was participating in Operation Neptune and trying to stay alive.
My dad was gone when I was born.
Walters did not meet his father until he was 4 years old, and he still remembers his mother's excitement.
My mother dressed me. She made a Navy uniform. A perfect Navy uniform for me to meet my father when I first came in. Only she didn't realize, what my dad said after was, that's the last thing I wanted to see my son in because I've been around sailors for 4 years.
Little did he know, he would grow up and join naval forces just like his hero. Except his job would be in communications with high security during the Cold War.
We'd create a pack of cards, and the Air Force would fly them over to the 6th Fleet in Mediterranean, and they would use these cards in their IBM machines on board to be able to communicate and change our codes quickly.
As an E5, Walters was honorably discharged from the Navy and went on to be successful in the civilian world. Eventually, he graduated from Penn State University and became a licensed counselor. Over the years, he worked at Penn State, Radford University, Ferrum College, and Wytheville Community College. Now that he's retired, you can find him building and collecting model cars.
And I hand-painted that, and you can see the bumper Nerf bars that I made out of paper clips and painted them. This Ferrari Testarossa, for example, for 10 years was the biggest award winner in racing.
Just like each car, Walters has unique stories, and if you'll stick around to listen, he's happy to share. But if there's one story he'd want his mom and dad to hear, even though they've passed away, it would be this one.
My dad sent this to my mother when she was 8 weeks pregnant, and he was about to get on the ship to leave for Ireland. And it says, my darling wife, I received your letter today, dear, and sure was glad to receive it. Tomorrow morning, we will go to the ship. But honey, I'll be thinking of you always with love and kisses to my darling wife, Raleigh.
The letter is put away, but the past is not forgotten. And as for those who may not appreciate the Cold War,
I felt like it was a pretty important part. For 11 months, this friend of mine was tortured. And, just unspeakable things that they did to them, basically, to try and find out more information about what they were doing. So those things happen, during the Cold War, whatever, that you don't hear about.
Yeah, Roland actually told me that, especially him working in, with cryptologists, and he was coding and things like that. They had to keep communication. I mean, that's high tech for security. But it's interesting because the Cold War was so secretive. There was so many things that couldn't be shared, and I think that's why the appreciation level isn't as big as like other times, because it was so secretive. But I love what he said. He said, what we did kept us out of harm's way.
Yeah.
We weren't in harm's way because we prevented that from happening. But let me tell you an interesting story real quick, Logan. He got out of the military and went on to go to Penn State University, and he was in the housing where the ROTC students were. And so they hear that this guy's going to come, and he just got out of the Navy, Cold War veteran. And so they ask him, tell us, were you on the ship? War stories. And he was like, well, one, he couldn't say anything, but the fact that he couldn't give, he wasn't on a ship, they were like,
yeah, what'd you do?
Yeah.
Right.
One, he couldn't speak about what he was doing at that time. He said, just now they're getting to a point where you can talk about these things.
It's like 40, 50 years after the fact. And that's the thing, what I always kind of understood a little bit about the Cold War is like the hand was always over that red button, because you never knew what the Russians were going to do, what the, and the Cuban Missile Crisis and all of that, just kind of getting right to the edge, but not really getting pushed over. And I'm glad you did shine a light on this, because there were tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, million or more men and women that were in the military during that time, and they were ready to go.